Hello everyone, my name is LyktstolpeTV and welcome to another episode. Today I've decided to make a Ret Paladin PvP guide for you guys. I recently started playing my Paladin again after rerolling my Rogue for this expansion. I thought I was only going to be playing the Rogue, but the love for the Paladin class was simply too strong, so here I am again with my Ret Paladin of death, destruction and holy lasers and all that jazz. The following clip is not the only way to play Ret Paladin though. It's merely my preference, how I feel is the best way to play Ret Paladin at the moment. If you think this is way out of hand or just completely wrong, then that's totally fine. But I felt I would share with you guys how great this class is and how I play it. I will be going over everything I can in this episode, starting with the following. Talents and Glyphs, and then stat priority, gems and enchants, cooldowns and rotation, and then some of the macros I use. So, let's get started then. First off, in the tier 1 section of the talents, it's kind of a no-brainer. You kind of want to go for long arm of the law. It's just best in slot in like almost every scenario, just because spamming judgment every CD as a paladin, both for stacks and damage, is just getting that nice extra 45% movement in speed increase every time. It's just too golden to pass up, really. Some cases you could probably use speed of light if you really wanted to, but the cooldown is just too long, in my opinion, to make it worth it compared to long arm of the law. So yeah, it should be a no-brainer really. Long arm of the law is just best almost every opportunity you get. Forget this one even exists, at least for retribution. Maybe it can be decent for holy. I don't know, I haven't tried holy yet, but yeah, just forget this one exists for retribution anyway. Moving on to tier 2 on the talents. Almost also a no-brainer. It's kind of like your only heavy CC that you have as a Ret Paladin, which is used for obviously globaling people during your CDs and stuff. It's not the only one you can get in every situation though. Like you could get repentance if you wanted to, like in an arena environment or an RBG environment where CC is lacking and you already have a lot of stuns on your team. Like for instance, when I play 3v3, I usually play with a warrior or a death knight, and they usually have a stun already, so you could go for the repentance if you'd want to, but it's still not as viable as Fist of Justice, because especially in arenas you get focused a lot and you will rarely ever get a repentance off, seeing as aura mastery has been removed from Ret Paladins. So yeah, Fist of Justice is probably the best choice in 99% of the cases, but yeah. Blinding Light, I feel the cooldown is just too long for it to be worth it. Sure, you can CC a lot of people, but yeah, the CC breaks on damage and the 2-minute cooldown just makes it a no-no for me, at least personally. So yeah, stick with the Fist of Justice. The tier 3 list, we sort of have the support part of the talent tree. It's basically all heals and shields. The one I go with right now, and have been for quite some time, is the Selfless Healer. It's really good with healing up friends, keeping your healer topped if he's getting focused in arenas, or BGs for that matter. It's just really good if you get it stacked up to 3. You can toss that on someone else and it heals for 20% more than it would normally, and the mana cost is completely mitigated and the cost time is also completely mitigated. So an insta flash of light with 20% extra effect on an ally target is just pretty good. You can still use it on yourself as an insta cast, but it won't get the 20% increase on yourself. That only applies to when you cast it on other people. I tried out Eternal Flame, just for the heck of it, and for Retribution it's definitely a no-go. The healing over time is way too insignificant. It has no value whatsoever. You should not be taking this talent for Retribution ever. Sacred Shield is probably like a viable choice if you really don't want to heal all that much. But yeah, like your Flash of Light is by far your best survival mechanic, and making that instant is really good. But if you would want to have an extra shield, it'll be your only shield. But if you would want the shield instead of the insta heal, this one is totally viable. It protects you or an ally target with a holy shield for 30 seconds, absorbing up to 6,178 damage every 5.68 seconds. As you can see, this effect, the shield proc, stacks with haste, so the shield becomes more frequent if you have a lot of haste. But at this point in the expansion, where the haste stat is not that high yet, it's not being reduced as much as I would want it to, for it to be better than a selfless healer. But you know, it's definitely viable if you'd want to have it. Another thing worth mentioning about it is it's not purgeable, dispellable, or spell stealable. That's pretty much the only thing that makes it viable. The shield is stuck on you or the target, so you can really make sure that the absorb will occur and will not be interrupted in any way. So yeah, that's pretty much it with that one. Yeah, selfless healer though, 99% of the cases there as well, for me personally. Yeah. Moving on to the next tier. This is the one I prefer most. It's pretty straightforward. It makes all of your hand abilities have 2 charges instead of 1. And what this means is your hand abilities are pretty much these 3 right here on my action bar. Hand of Sacrifice, Hand of Protection, and Hand of Freedom. And yeah, this talent overall is just really good for arenas, because nowadays Hand of Sacrifice removes any harmful effects on the target and also transfers damage they take to me. So I'm kind of taking the damage for them, removing all magic effects. So this is pretty good, considering if it's pretty game changing when you toss it on a healer who's in trouble. You know, you dispel all the dots, you take some of his damage in turn, and another good thing about it is that if you don't have it glyphed, the damage you take will break CC. So like for instance, if you get sheeped or trapped or something, like, you can break these CCs with having this up on an ally target, which is great as well. So it's really a lot of pros with this talent. No, sorry, this spell. And Clemency just makes it that much better, because you have 2 charges, so you can use it on 2 targets or the same target, one after the other. You know, it's really up to you. And then you get 2 charges of this bad boy right here, which is also a really good spell for helping out your allies and of course yourself if you need to. But what it does basically is granting an immunity to you or an allied target for 10 seconds, and they cannot be attacked by physical abilities or attacks for that duration. However, if you cast it on yourself, you cannot use any spells or attack as well, so keep that in mind. But it's really good to use on spellcaster allies or healer allies, getting trained by melee, because then they can free cast, because interrupts are also being completely mitigated by this immunity. So this is really good. So you get 2 charges of this guy as well. And then last but not least, Hand of Freedom. Places a hand on a friendly target, granting immunity to movement impairing effects. This applies to roots as well, so you can completely break any roots or movement impairing effects for 6 seconds on you or an ally, and this goes really well with the glyph I'm gonna mention later. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So Clemency is my best choice in most environments I'm in right now, in BG's arenas and all that jazz. However, Unbreakable Spirit is still pretty viable. It's just a really good passive, really. It just flat out reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, which makes it a 2.5 minute cooldown instead of 5 minutes, which is quite a lot. However, 2.5 minutes is still a very long time, and in an arena environment, for example, you probably will not be able to use 2 of them that often. Most games are pretty fast-paced, and even if you do get a second one off, most classes have a dispel for your bubble, so I prefer to stick with Clemency because you can help others more that way. Divine Protection, this minor shield wall that you have, which is pretty good. Since I have it unglyphed, it reduces magical damage taken by 40% for 8 seconds. That one is also reduced in half, which means it'll be on a 30-second cooldown if you pick Unbreakable Spirit. This is quite good as well if you face caster Glyphs. This is something you could use, definitely, if you know for certain that your healer or your allies will be fine on their own, so to speak. And then Lay on Hands, of course, reduced by 50% as well. This is quite fun to have in BGs and stuff like that, just to, you know, have that extra, oh, you didn't quite kill me, did you? Nope, full health kill sort of moments, which is quite fun. Pretty much. Yeah, it's just a pretty good cooldown reduction talent, really. It works quite great as well. Hand of Purity next on the list. Also a viable pick, actually, in some cases, like Spell Cleaves, for instance. Especially with Boomkin's Affliction Warlocks and stuff like that, because they have a lot of dots, and not only do you reduce the damage over time effects by 80%, but you also get a flat 10% damage reduction for the entire duration as well. This is a hand sort of spell, so to speak, so it cannot be used at the same time as Hand of Freedom, for instance. They'll override each other. Same with Hand of Protection and Hand of Sacrifice. Although Hand of Sacrifice can be used on yourself anyway, so it doesn't matter, but Freedom and Protection will be overwritten if you use this on yourself or an ally. So that's, I guess, really only the downside with it. But yeah, it's a really good talent when you play against combos with a lot of dots. And bleed. Oh yeah, it applies to bleeds as well. I forgot to mention. So it could be good against Warrior Druid, Feral Druid combos as well. Next on the list is Holy Avenger. Abilities that generate holy power, which is Judgment, Crusader Strike, Exorcism, and Hammer of Wrath, will deal an additional 30% damage and healing, and will generate 3 charges of holy power for the next 18 seconds. This is a really, really, really great talent, mostly because it stacks on your Hammer of Wrath ability, and your Hammer of Wrath ability just hits for a shit ton when you have wings up, since it can be used regardless of the enemy's HP. Also, the 3 holy power generation for each spell is just so godlike as well. You can really dish out a lot of Templar's verdicts, no, sorry, final verdicts, when you have that active, and it's just so good. You can also use it defensively as well, and just dish out a lot of Word of Glories on you if you need that. If you need that extra healing if you're in trouble, but most of the time you should try and use the wings offensively. But in some cases you might have to use it defensively. But we'll go on to that later. Yeah, overall it's just a really great talent for dishing out extra damage, and it lasts a heck of a long time as well. 18 seconds is just godlike. Sanctified Wrath is a decent talent as well. Really mentions the Hammer Wrath ability I was talking about just now. Avenging Wrath lasts 50% longer. Now, without the talent, it lasts for 20 seconds. So with this talent, it would last for 30 seconds instead, which is also quite a lot of damage increase, seeing as you can dish out 2 more Hammer Wraths for the duration. No, actually it's going to be more, because, yeah, I can see now the Retribution part of this passive reduces the cooldown of Hammer Wrath by 50% as well. So Hammer Wrath would actually have like 2.80 second cooldown instead of 5.60, which is also really, really great. You wouldn't have to use anything else but Hammer Wrath in this case, which really dishes out a whole lot of damage if it crits over and over again. So yeah, this one is definitely viable as well, in my opinion. I do prefer Holy Avenger though, because of the extra damage on my generator spells as well, the 30%. So yeah. Moving on to Divine Purpose. This one is also sort of viable if you prefer not having that extra cooldown, the Holy Avenger keeping track of it, you know, all that stuff. Like, some people find it annoying. I don't really mind. I have a macro for it. Doesn't matter to me. But if you like that passive, which has a chance to dish out some extra damage, then this one is definitely for you. Word of Glory, Templar's Verdict, and Divine Storm has a 25% chance to cause your next Word of Glory or Final Verdict or Divine Storm to consume no holy power and be cast as if 3 holy powers were consumed. This one can really go on a proccing spree sometimes. I've seen it proc 5-6 times in a row, meaning you won't have to spend any holy power at all, dishing out all that extra damage or healing if needed. So yeah, it's definitely viable. But yeah, as I said, I prefer Holy Avenger myself for all intents and purposes. So yeah, moving on to the next tier, we have Execution Sentence. This one did not used to be my preference because Execution Sentence was dispellable. Oh, well, it is dispellable now as well, but dispelling it before did not have a penalty. It sort of works like Unstable Affliction does now. If you dispel it, it'll trigger the final burst instantly, both healing and damage-wise. So this makes it really powerful because it can crit for a whole lot of damage, both damage and healing, if you use it as a heal on yourself or an ally, or if you use it for damage on the target. So yeah, the tick is quite moderate. It's not that big, but the burst is definitely mentionable, especially when it crits and you have light wings up and stuff like that. So yeah, the 1 minute cooldown is quite heavy, but it's no big deal really. It's really great. It's sort of something you can use when you don't have wings up, you know. You can dish it out and put some extra pressure on even though you don't have wings, so it's good in that sense as well. This talent right here, Light's Hammer, also has a 1 minute cooldown. However, you toss a hammer down on the ground and the damage area is static. You can't move it, you can't reposition it once it's down, so it's easily dodgeable for people. It does, however, nowadays provide a slow for 2 seconds. It also heals allies standing in it, but for PvP purposes I feel it's still not that viable. I would not pick this in any situation really, not for PvP anyway. The next talent, talent, sorry, I was right. The next talent in the tier is called Holy Prism. This used to be the best one, seeing as it's an insta hitting spell. It's not a tick, it's not a buff that can be dispelled like the Execution Sentence. Yeah, like I said, it used to be the best one. You could use it on an enemy target for damage and it would bounce and heal you and nearby allied target within 15 yards. Or you could use it as a heal and it would bounce from the heal target to enemies around them and do damage. So it was really a good all-in-all kind of spell. You know, you could use it, either way you used it, you'd either come out with a heal or damage component in the end. So it was really good. The mana cost was really low as well. The cooldown is also pretty low, so that made it pretty good back in the day, but most paladins these days, including myself, prefer Execution Sentence. So this is what I'll be sticking with. Last but definitely not least is the no-brainer, in my opinion, for Retribution. Is by far the best talent ever. It just, oh god, it blows my mind. It's so good. What it does, it replaces your old Templar's Verdict and transforms it into Final Verdict. And what it does is empowers your weapon with holy energy, performs a devastating strike, dealing 12,684 damage on crit on a target. Also increases the damage and radius of your next Divine Storm by 100%. And this buff stays on you for a long time, so you don't have to worry about dishing it out instantly to get that extra damage and range off of your Divine Storm. Another thing it does, which is my favorite component actually, it makes your Final Verdict like a short range-like spell. Like before, Templar's Verdict, well, you had to be in melee range. but now when it's final verdict, you can use it from 10 yards away, which is really great when you're getting kited and locked down. You can still dish out that huge burst from a short distance if you need to. Yeah, that's just pretty much it. It's so good. It's by far a no-brainer. I guess I could go over the other ones as well. Seraphim. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. The cooldown is quite low actually, but the 5 holy power cost makes it kind of you know, like, nah, it's not worth it for me, not compared to what the final verdict does damage and range wise. It's just not comparable to me. If the holy power cost would be 3 or lower, maybe it could be worth swapping out in some occasions, but I don't think so, like, at all. The next one, Powered Seals, however, is a little bit more viable than Seraphim, in my opinion. It could be like the next talent Ret Paladins go for if final verdict somehow gets nerfed or whatever. Let's hope it doesn't though, but yeah. Basically what this does is your seals also cause your judgment to empower you with an additional beneficial effect which persists through changing seals. So basically what you could do is with the Judgment of Justice, increases your movement speed by 20 seconds for 20 seconds. This is a quite long movement speed increase, it lasts very long. What you could do is you could swap to Judgment of Justice, judge once, and then swap back to Judgment of Truth, which is your main seal, and then just have that short movement speed increase effect. And then you can, like, when you swap to Seal of Truth, you can judge again. When you get to catch up to the target and you judge again, you get the attack power by 15% increase for 20 seconds. And yeah, the 15% attack power could become really devastating later in the game, in the later patches when the stats get a little bit higher. It's still a pretty good talent, but final verdict in my opinion wins every time. But the 15% attack power or 15% haste could also be good later on. It could definitely compete at some point with final verdict, but as of now I don't think that is the case. Alright, moving on to Glyphs on the list. Basically the Glyphs I'm using right now is Glyph of Templar's Verdict. This is mostly a no-brainer in my opinion. What it does is makes you take 10% less damage for 6 seconds after dealing damage with Templar's Verdict. This applies to Final Verdict as well, or Exorcism. It used to be only Templar's Verdict, and the old Templar's Verdict being in melee made it hard to keep, you know, 100% uptime on, so it was debatable whether you can swap this one out or not, but now when it procs on Exorcism as well, and Final Verdict being a little bit ranged, this is a great talent to just mitigate some of that incoming damage when you get trained a lot, because you will get trained a lot, trust me. So yeah, this is pretty much a no-brainer for me right now. This one, however, is a personal preference of mine. I have not seen many Ret Paladins use it, but seeing as you get a lot of Divine Storm procs, sometimes it is quite viable in my opinion. In PvP combat, when I have like my gear scaled up, so to speak, it actually heals me for roughly between 12 and 15k HP. And when you get those really nice procs with like 3-4 Divine Storms in a row, that's a lot of healing you're gonna dish out while doing damage at the same time. So preferably, personal preference, this is a really great talent. Glyph, in my opinion. I use it mostly for BGs, RBGs and stuff like that. However, I can sometimes swap it out with this Glyph right here I was gonna get to. Where is it? There it is. The Hand of Freedom one. As I mentioned earlier with the Hand of Freedom, it removes all movement pairing effects and roots. What this Glyph would do if you use it is it would also reduce any remaining duration of control pairing effects by 25%. So if, for instance, you would get stunned and you use Freedom in the stun, you would reduce the stun duration by 25%, which is pretty good. In most cases it will be like a second less or so. It can be game changing. So yeah, and it also applies an additional effect. All crowd control effects after you use the freedom will also have an additional 25% reduced duration. So if you know you're gonna get CC'd a lot and you dish out this freedom when you're sitting in a stun and they stun you again, for instance, or they fear you, those CC effects will be reduced by 25%, which is pretty good considering you get CC'd and controlled a lot. So yeah, this one could definitely be used in place of my Divine Storm glyph, definitely. Another glyph I use sometimes is Glyph of Sacrifice, when I don't have the health to spare to take all that extra damage from the ally I'm putting it on. However, if you use this glyph, you will not be able to break any CCs such as Fear, Trap, and Sheep, since you will be taking no damage back to you when you have this up, so that's the only downside is with this one. However, I mainly use this talent against classes who don't have any CC I can break with damage, like pretty much like Druid Rogues with hard stuns and stuff. You can't break the stuns with this anyway, so you might as well, you know, not take that extra damage so the healer gets more stuff to heal afterwards. This is a good, great talent as well to be using. Another talent you could use, however, it's not viable anymore, seeing as this Burden of Guilt glyph that I was going to get to is pretty much a no-brainer. It's an additional slow. Every time you judge, you slow the target for 2 seconds by 50%. It's exclusive with Double Jeopardy, but Double Jeopardy is still viable in my opinion. It does a lot of extra damage to Judgment. But yeah, you need to use it on a different target for it to work, so it's kind of a hassle in PvP really, so I would be sticking with Burden of Guilt every time, in my opinion. Another glyph you could also use instead of Divine Storm is a glyph of Flash of Light if you need that extra backup healing. It can be quite powerful. If you crit, it's another 10% extra health. It's pretty good to have in some situations. Other glyphs you could use. Yeah, I guess this one has been sort of nerfed. It was really good before. It's still decent. But yeah, it used to be cannot exceed 50% of your health. Now it's only 35%. But yeah, when you bubble, if you know you're playing against a team with a Master Spell, if you bubble versus a team who has a lot of dots, you will get a 35% heal when you bubble, so you don't fall behind as much when they dispel your bubble, like instantly, like most pro teams are doing. So it's pretty decent, if you ask me. Also another glyph you can be using if you're facing a physical heavy team is you can glyph your Divine Protection, so it will also reduce 20% physical damage taken. However, your magic damage taken will be reduced to 20% as well, so you kind of have to compromise there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Haven't tried this glyph yet. I don't think it's probably not worth it, seeing as every 4 seconds is quite a long time in between ticks. It could be useful in combination with Sanctified Wrath, where your wings would last 10 seconds longer, but I don't see anyone using this, to be honest, over, for instance, this one or the Hand of Freedom one. So the Hand of Freedom one and the Divine Storm is probably the ones I will be using the most out of the ones I've just gone through. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the glyphs. Alright, next up on the list is stat priority, gems, and enchants. Now typically, for me personally, I will go as follows. I will prefer the stats in this order. I would prefer strength, and then crit, and then haste, and then multi-strike, and then mastery, and then versatility in this order most of the time. The reason for this being strength is obviously the no-brainer. The strength gives you attack power, it gives you more damage, just flat out more damage. It's just something you always want to get. You will always get on every piece a buttload of strength, but the more the better. And the reason for crit being the secondary best stat is simply because getting those crits on both heals and damage is the things that make Paladin such a good class. Critting during wings with Hammer Rat, Templar's Verdict is a butt ton of damage. It's just out of this world how much damage you do when you crit. So, and also healing your allies with Flash of Light, and then having that one crit, you can, like right now with this gear I have now, the current patch, I can crit heal an ally for roughly 120,000 HP with wings up, of course, which is quite game-changing as well, seeing as 120k damage is quite a lot these days. So yeah, you kind of just want to stack as much crit as you possibly can at this point in the game, just to dish out that extra damage and extra healing done to your teammates. The reason for haste being the secondary one is it reduces the cooldown on all your generator spells. You gain less cooldown on Judgment, Crusader Strike, Exorcism, and Hammer Wrath. Like every single generator spell that has a cooldown, the cooldown is being reduced by haste. The global cooldown is also reduced, which is also really good to dish out the healing, and in combination with the damage and vice versa. Like the global cooldown is always an enemy for a Ret Paladin because you can dish out so much spells, both offensive and defensive. So you kind of want to get them out as soon as possible, as often as possible. So the haste really helps out there, reducing the global cooldown and the cooldown of the spells themselves. The reason for multi-strike being the third best stat is, well, when you do an ability, heal or damage wise, there's a, well in my case, 4.80% chance to deliver an additional attack or heal for 30% of the normal value. This is really good for, like I mentioned earlier, Hammer, Rat, and Templar's Verdict benefits a lot from this. 30% damage of, for instance, a 40k crit is a lot of extra damage when it actually procs. Same with the healing. If you do heal someone for 120k with wings, for instance, and then the multi-strike procs, and you get a 30% additional heal on top of that, that's a lot of extra healing that you're gonna get. Come to think of it, I think I'm pretty much putting haste and multi-strike on an equal level, mainly because, yeah, they're both really good stats, but I think in the long run, crit is by far the best one, and then you kind of level with the haste and the multi-strike one, the one you prefer most, really, I suppose. Mastery being the fourth best secondary stat, basically it's just a no-brainer. It makes your Crusader Strike, Hammer of the Righteous, Hammer of Wrath, Templar's Verdict, Divine Storm, and their multi-strikes, this is also pretty good, to deal an additional 39.2% additional damage as holy damage. So yeah, it's basically just an extra attack that you also dish out when you do your spells. This one combined with multi-strike, and it also procs off of multi-strikes. It makes it quite good, actually, quite good, but it scales really well, so you don't really need to get this stat that much right now. This is why, since it's already scaled up so high, you can pretty much leave it at this and just get any spare mastery on any piece that you will get, and just, you know, just roll with it. Really, 39% is still a lot, and this is why I'm also really going for crit most of all. Versatility is also like a no-brainer. Increases your damage and healing done, and it decreases the damage taken. I can really see versatility taking a nice part in the PvP scene later on in the expansion, when the item pieces gives a little bit more of the stat, but right now it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. The only versatility I really have is the versatility I get from my trinket, just to get that extra % damage output with the wings, which also already gives the 20% extra damage done. So like when you combine that with the wings, it makes it worth it, because there's already a % multiplier in there, but in itself it's not a powerful stat, I think, so I'm leaving it in the behind for now, but that will most likely change, I think, definitely, later on in the expansion. So yeah, that leaves it for the stat priority. Moving on to gems. Right now I don't have any pieces with gem slots in it, But if there were any gem slot, which there probably will be later, I'm not sure, but if there would be, I would be going for crit, obviously, since it's the main secondary stat in all slots. Since you can only gem secondary stats these days, you cannot gem strength anymore, making it very, very viable to get the crit gems. I probably would have gotten the crit gems either way because, yeah, crit is just godly. You just want to get as much of it as you possibly can. And as for enchants, also, obviously, you're gonna enchant crit, since crit is your best secondary stat. I've mentioned this before, I believe. You just want to get the crit enchant on neck, crit enchant on cloak, and both the rings can get an additional 30 plus crit chance. A strike, sorry, rating. These are the only pieces that you can enchant with the secondary stats at the moment, I believe, and yeah, that's pretty much what we're gonna do. Just get crit all the way. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this section as well. Let's move on, shall we? Right, so next on the list is cooldowns and rotations. Mainly, like from a base point of view, what you want to use rotation-wise for damage is, if you have wings up, you always prioritize Hammer Rat first. It does by far the most damage, whether it doesn't matter if it's crit or just a normal hit, it does the most damage out of your spells. So you want to dish this one out first if you can. So in that order you want to do Hammer Rat, Exorcism, because this one has a 20% chance to reset on your auto attack. So dish this one out as soon as possible, and then, you know, get that extra proc and you can dish out another one, because Exorcism does the most damage after Hammer Wrath, in my opinion. After Exorcism you should prioritize Judgment, because Judgment gives us a stack of Selfless Healer, which I explained before, and when you get 3 stacks you get that extra free heal, so I would definitely prioritize Judgment after Exorcism, and then last but not least Crusader Strike. That's the generator, Holy Power Generator rotation that I use to dish out the most damage, and of course dump all the Holy Power when you're in offensive mode, so to speak, on Final Verdict. So yeah, that's pretty much the offensive rotation that I use. I feel dishes out the most damage most efficiently. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And you can sometimes use the Selfless Healer, like you don't have to have 3 stacks of Selfless Healer to dish out the heal. If you have 2 stacks, the heal, like I can show you, the heal will still be like a little bit lower cost time than it originally will be. Without stacks it'll be on a 1.42 second cost. If you judge once and heal, it'll heal for 0.9 seconds. However, if you get, let's see, if you get 2 stacks, it should heal even faster. I think it'll go down to as fast as, yeah, 0.4 seconds. So yeah, if you're really in a tight spot where you really need to dish out a heal and you are certain that the opponent you're playing against won't interrupt you, you can still dish it out earlier than 3 stacks. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this part. Oh yeah, also of course don't forget to put up Execution Sentence on your target. You generally want to be doing this in combination with Avenging Wrath to get the most damage out of it, but it can also be used outside of it, seeing as it has a 1-minute cooldown. You can use 1 with the wings and then 1 without, just to get that extra sustained damage in there, you know. What I usually do is my pop trinket also has a 1-minute cooldown, so on the time where I don't have wings, I use this one combined with Execution Sentence, like a sort of minor cooldown usage, so to speak, and then they will both be ready in combination when wings is ready again, and then you just rinse repeat like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the rotation. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously dish out any Divine Storm procs that you get when you feel like you need that extra healing. If you're using the Glyph I'm using, the Glyph Divine Storm. However, if you don't use that Glyph, I would not recommend using Divine Storm really, unless there's a lot of targets around you. Most of the time the Hammer, Wrath or Exorcism will be dealing more damage on a single target than Divine Storm will, unless you have it final verdict, so to speak. But yeah, that's pretty much it for rotation, I think. Yeah. And last but not least, some of the macros I use right now. I used to use more macros than I have at the moment, but these are the ones that I find really crucial with playing currently. Let's start with my sort of one-shot macro, if you will. Basically what I have done is I've combined Avenging Wrath, which is Wings, with Holy Avenger. Holy Avenger is also on a 2-minute cooldown, same as Wings, so you can always use them together. They will not be ready on different times then, which is great, because you kind of want to use them at the same time for that extra damage. I also put my Activate Trinket in there to get that 1 minute cooldown going. It really helps with the extra versatility. It gives me a flat additional damage increase. I have 3% passively. I almost get 6% with the trinket on, so that's another 3% extra damage. So with Wings and my versatility, I would have 25.93% extra damage done, which is quite a lot. With the Holy Avenger, which grants another 30% on my generator spells. So yeah, it really dishes out a whole lot of extra damage if you pop all of these at the same time, which is usually what I do. No, not usually, every single time. You should do this every single time if you want to get the most damage out of this. At least in my opinion. Next glyph is my Fist of Justice glyph. It's standard shift Fist of Justice glyph. What it does is, if you hold down shift, it'll Hammer of Justice your focus target if you have one, and if you don't have a focus target, it'll just Fist of Justice like your normal target. This is really great for arena purposes where you really need to dish out that fast stun on the enemy healer or DPS to peel for your teammates. It's just a standard shift modifier. I prefer these still, even though there are plenty of mouse over and other good macros that people use, but I'm still sticking with the shift one. I prefer it. I have a similar one for Rebuke, however I don't use the shift modifier on this because it kind of messes up with my keybinds at the moment, so I've got a separate one for Focus Rebuke and then the normal one for my target. So yeah, that's pretty much the difference there. I don't think I'm using any other glyphs right now. I used to have like similar glyphs to this Rebuke one. I used to have like one for Hand of Protection, one for Hand of Freedom, one for Hand of Sacrifice, so I wouldn't have to manually target my teammates in order to dish them out. But yeah, those are really handy, but right now I'm just rolling with the manual clicking on those because you only really use them once every 5 minutes, 2 minutes. It's just, it doesn't really matter sometimes. It's just, it just really cluttered up my action bars with a whole lot of more macros than I preferred, really. So yeah, I'm running manually with those right now, but if you want to have specific targeted macros for these abilities, there are plenty of forums and other websites that can provide these for you. I might include them in the description. I'm not sure, but yeah. Anyway, either way, you can find them out pretty easily yourself, if I don't, but yeah, I think this is pretty much all I use for macros right now. Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that's it. This is it for now, for my Ret Paladin guide. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments below what you really thought of it. I'm really up for constructive criticism. If you want to tell me on things how I can improve as a YouTuber, and any constructive criticism is appreciated. yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this time, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.